Imagine this, Chelsea supporters scroll through their feeds in June 2025 and see Joao Pedro linked with the club. The reaction? Skepticism. Memes about another Brighton purchase and questions about whether he could truly fix Chelsea's attacking woes. Fast forward to September and he has scored in a Club World Cup final.
Oh, it's a clever pass! João Pedro 3-0!
Led the team to Premier League wins with towering headers.
João Pedro! Scoring goals from the moment he arrived in the summer.
And be nominated for Player of the Month.
For sure, he gave us quality. You see the goal he scored against PSG was quality goal, was fantastic goal. Also the goal scored against Fluminense, it's quality. He gave us a lot of quality inside the box. We need that quality with the small space, and Joao gave us that.
So how did a player who was on no one's wish list become the hinge of Chelsea's new look attack? I'm here to discuss Joao Pedro's unexpected rise at Chelsea Football Club. The doubts, the early heroics, the evolving role, the numbers, and why he might be the surprise superstar Chelsea didn't even realize that they needed. Chelsea's interest in Joao Pedro surfaced in the early beginnings of the summer window, and after the club failed to secure high-profile targets such as Victor Gyökeres, Alexander Isak, and even Benjamin Sesko. When Brazilian reports first announced that Chelsea were making moves to sign Joao Pedro, no one could believe their eyes. At the time, the fan base wanted high-profile striker targets like Gyökeres, Sesko, and even Alexander Isak. Instead, Chelsea were negotiating for a $55 million move, including bonuses, for another versatile forward who fans felt was more in line with your Nkunkus, your Joao Felixes, players who can play across multiple roles but don't necessarily have a home at Chelsea Football Club. It left the fan base scratching their heads. Why buy another Brighton player? The suspicion stemmed from a mix of experiences with signings from the South Coast and transfer sagas. The price tag added pressure. Chelsea were investing significantly in a player who's only produced 10 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League last season for Brighton. Surely those numbers aren't enough. At Brighton, Joao Pedro played as a hybrid forward, switching between a striker role, attacking midfielder, and a wider role. His stats under Hutzler last season showed that he was more than a finisher. He ranked high for take-ons and progressive carries among strikers, and he drew many fouls, creating many opportunities, which hinted that he could link play rather than simply waiting for services. How Hutzler used Joao Pedro was completely different to how De Zerbi used Joao Pedro. He used him more as an out-and-out number 9 who could come deep and link the attack. If there was one thing that Pedro proved though, is that he excels to a very high level, playing in a variety of different roles. To appreciate why Pedro's arrival raised eyebrows, consider the context at Chelsea at the time. We just about scraped through to get a top 4 finish, and many of last season's woes came from the fact that we weren't clinical enough and weren't taking the opportunities that came our way. Fans felt like to upgrade the team and to make us stronger. A player that can reliably get us goals and hover inside the box was the best possible profile. Outside of Cole Palmer, who even suffered with a goal drought last season, there wasn't that natural goal scorer in the team. Fans clamored for an established striker, not a versatile forward viewed more as a luxury type of player. Chelsea announced Pedro's signing on the 2nd of July, giving him a contract until 2033. According to reports, the fee was around $55 million with bonuses, and he joined immediately because Chelsea were mid-preparations for the Club World Cup in the States. Now, the reaction around Pedro's signing was the definition of mixed. Social media features like Twitter and forums were filled with jokes about Brighton FC, suggestions that Chelsea were copying their transfer model, and they lamented that the club hadn't signed a prolific striker. There was also confusion about his role. Would he replace Cole Palmer as the 10? Would he play more a wider role? Could he play as a false 9? Even the player admitted that he himself wasn't sure at first, but in later interviews it revealed that Enzo Maresca told him upon his arrival in the States, "I want you as a number 9. He acknowledged that he could exist in roles outside of playing as a striker, and Pedro described himself as a modern striker who thrives in one-on-ones and small spaces, and he emphasized he needed to score more headers to improve. There was much interest amid Pedro's first appearance for Chelsea, and that came in the Club World Cup quarter-final. He entered the game as a substitute, showing glimpses of his energy and off-ball movement, but it was the next 2 games which turned skeptics into believers. In the semi-final game against his former boyhood club in Fluminense, Pedro started as the central striker, and within 30 minutes he had silenced the critics. For his first first goal, he sets himself up to take a shot perfectly before curling the ball into the far right corner. The keeper and Fluminense's defense had no time to react. It showcased his exceptional shooting technique. And for his second goal, wow, a powerful drive, and he smashes it into the top corner on the break with his other foot. Immediately, with those two goals, he made the entire fan base take notice. Chelsea fans haven't seen venomous shooting technique like this in a very long time. If Joao Pedro had Chelsea fans' curiosity, he most definitely had their attention right now. Those two strikes propelled Chelsea into the final, making headlines back in London, and reports highlighted how Pedro's ability to combine strength with finesse overwhelmed Fluminense's defense. Pedro had immediately added quality to the team. The next big stage was set against Paris Saint-Germain in the Club World Cup final, and he helped Chelsea to a famous win against Paris Saint-Germain. Cole Palmer stole the headlines, but Pedro still left his mark. With Chelsea leading 2-0, he timed his run between PSG's defense superbly to receive a Cole Palmer through ball, and in one touch, he deftly scoops the ball with the outside of his boot over the top of the onrushing Donnarumma, sealing a 3-0 victory and helping Chelsea rightfully call themselves champions of the world. In interviews, Maresca praised Pedro for his movement in tight spaces, flexibility across the lines, and his pressing and counter-attacking abilities, and his ability to connect with Cole Palmer. This was the perfect start for life for Joao Pedro. Pedro later said that the squad helped him settle quickly because he knew many players from facing them in the Premier League. At the moment, he's formed a strong bond with Andre Santos and even the younger Estevão Willian, encouraging the teenage prodigy to practice his English and his gym routines. About meeting Cole Palmer, Pedro surprisingly admitted that he was a little bit scared at first because Palmer, in his eyes, is a superstar. But he told Cole Palmer on arrival, "Bro, I'm here to help you." And it's this honesty which has endeared himself into Chelsea fan hearts. Excitement was brewing amongst fans in the run-up to the start of the Premier League. But before that, we had pre-season games against Milan and Leverkusen to take over first. 2 more games, 2 more goals for Joao Pedro. Pedro impressed with his tidy link-up play and goals against Leverkusen and Milan. These games showcased that he wasn't just a momentary star. He consistently executed one-touch ball passes, drew fouls, he helped a Milan player get sent off, and he arrived late in the books for his finishes. Analysts began noting that he could thrive both as a number 9 and a number 10 together, adding to the flexibility of Maresca's system. And it was this system that Joao Pedro was starting to elevate for Enzo Maresca. During the Club World Cup and pre-season games, Maresca continued with the end of last season's system change with his introduction of a 3-1-6. This system relies upon a centre forward who can pin the defensive line, drop into midfield, and link all aspects across the lines up front. Pedro's profile, high on progressive carries, short creating actions, and fouls drawn, aligned with this requirement. Unlike some strikers who lurk in the box, he prefers to receive, bounce the ball to the midfielders, and make those Thurman runs. Analysts are starting to name Joao Pedro the connector. After continuing to showcase his finishing prowess in pre-season, everyone was gearing up to see what he could do with the start of the Premier League, as Chelsea was set to take on Crystal Palace at home on opening day of the season. Excitement was overflowing, yet Chelsea produced an anticlimactic game against a resilient Crystal Palace by earning a 0-0 draw. Joao Pedro had his quietest moment in a Chelsea shirt. He played 72 minutes, had no shots on target. His expected goals was 0.3, no expected assists, and he only played 11 out of 13 passes. Despite Chelsea dominating with 71% possession, the game ended scoreless. Reports describe Pedro's performance as silent, limited touches, and difficulties against Palace's compact defense. The only moment that Pedro had against Crystal Palace was in the second half when he headed over a Neto corner and failed to connect with another cross. After the 0-0 game, critics started to emerge, and they said this game was proof about Chelsea's failure to sign a classic penalty box poacher because Joao Pedro was anonymous, and it's these games in which he'll show his limitations. On August the 22nd, 2025, Chelsea was set to take on their consecutive London derby against historic rivals in West Ham. There was pressure going into this game. It was announced very late that Cole Palmer had picked up an injury during the warm-up. Estevão was set to replace him, but Joao Pedro's role had changed in the team. With the pressure of being labelled as world champions, the Chelsea team knew that they couldn't allow this moment to be wasted against West Ham, irrespective of the difficulties in the run-up to this game. And if critics had something to say about Pedro against Crystal Palace, against West Ham, they had to shut their mouths because Chelsea produced a 5-1 away win, and Joao Pedro was the star of the show. Pedro shone in the number 10 role. He nodded in Chelsea's equaliser from a flicked on Cucurella corner, demonstrating his improvements with heading the ball. Minutes later, he whipped across to set up Pedro Neto to make it 2-1, and he later helped keep the ball alive in a corner scramble leading to Trevor Chalobah's goal. Chelsea hammered the Hammers 5-1, and analysts noted his quick one-touch passing, his ability to draw out defenders and release runners, and his surprising aerial ability. Joao Pedro played a different role to Cole Palmer. Pass and go, pass and move. He added dynamism and speed to Chelsea's game and showcased immense qualities with little touches of the ball, producing 1 goal and 2 assists after only completing 23 out of 27 passes. Chelsea finally secured their first win of the new Premier League season, but now the test was on, up against Marco Silva's Fulham team at home again, where Chelsea notoriously don't get the points they deserve on a consistent basis. Against Fulham, Pedro played behind Liam Delap, but yet again there was another early injury to another Englishman, with Liam Delap having been subbed off, replaced by Tyree George. 2 games and 2 key players missing, but with Joao Pedro on the team, you feel like none of that really even matters, because when the chips are down against us, Joao Pedro is the talisman and leader who steps up for the team. Deep into the stoppage time of the first half, he attacked Enzo Fernandez's in-swinging corner at the near post, powering a header into the net. Joao Pedro had put Chelsea in front against Fulham in a game in which Fulham were the better team in the first half. If the first half was about Joao Pedro scoring goals, the second half showed that he can also deny goals, as he made a crucial goal line clearance to keep the game at 2-0, showcasing his commitment and mentality to his teammates. Pedro linked play, exchanged quick passes, and he pressed very hard. The match report described him as Chelsea's difference maker on a day where the team otherwise did struggle to actually create. After Pedro's first 3 games in the league, the stats are starting to paint an interesting story. 2 goals, 2 assists from 8 shots, from 3 on target, with an expected goals of 1.4 and an expected assist rate of 1.1. His shot creating actions are leading the team with 6, his goal creating actions are 2, and he has a respectable pass accuracy up front with 84%. These stats highlight perfectly the balance between his scoring, his creating, and also his link-up play. Now, one of the reasons behind Pedro's earliest success at Chelsea right now is definitely in the dressing room, the culture, and the vibe right now. He emphasized how quickly the team helped him settle in. He spoke about how he's putting an arm around the young players like Estefao, frequently encouraging him to go to the gym and actually going with him. In the same interview, he explained his fears with Cole Palmer, worrying that he could be cold towards him, but instead the pair have quickly bonded, with Pedro describing them as working well together, emphasizing that his goal is to help Palmer and the team, with Palmer likewise praising Pedro's movement and work ethic. But most importantly, he has the respect of the manager, with Maresca telling Pedro he always wanted him as a number 9, also doing his homework by talking to De Zerbi. Joao Pedro said that he loves managers like Enzo Maresca, managers that give constant feedback, that tell him room for improvements and help him improve and raise his game. And so far under Maresca, we've seen Joao Pedro excel as the arriver, but also as the pauser. The key reason why Pedro's fit at Chelsea is so well is how differently he operates compared to a Cole Palmer. Palmer is a conductor who carries the ball, manipulates defenders, delays passes until the perfect moment. Pedro, however, is a passer move player. He receives, he lays off first time, he spins away, and he arrives in the box. This accelerates the tempo in which Chelsea can play in. Against West Ham, his one-touch passes launched runners like Delap and Neto, and the ball rarely died at his feet. This directness gives Chelsea 2 distinct attacking modes: Palmer's control and Pedro's speed. Pedro's early performances show he isn't just scoring, he has contributed defensively too. The Fulham match provides a great example. After scoring, he clears a late header off the line, he presses from the front, initiates counter presses after turnovers, and drags back when needed. This 2-box value is rare and makes him invaluable in a team that relies on collective effort. At Brighton, Pedro only scored 1 header in the Premier League last season. At Chelsea, he already has 2. Chelsea have reawakened Pedro's potential that he showed in his first season under De Zerbi with scoring with his head. The West Ham and Fulham games show that he responds when questioned, each header coming from a well-timed run at the near post and far post. This suggests the coaching staff is designing set pieces around him, which is something he revealed in later interviews, and the most important thing is Joao Pedro is executing them. Opponents now have to assign a strong marker to him at corners, freeing spaces for others to attack balls. Naturally, with his form for Chelsea, this is now raising his estimations with the Brazilian national team, and during the September September international break, Brazil faced Chile in a World Cup qualifier. Pedro didn't score, but he impressed journalists with his movement and involvement. He got a match rating of 7 out of 10, and he got non-stop praise for his ability to keep the team moving. He played a role in Esteval's first goal for Brazil, combining quickly with Santos and Rafinha before Esteval's bicycle kick finish. This moment mirrored his club play: quick touches, clever positioning, and an emphasis on connections rather than individual showmanship. In that same game, Pedro looked like a mentor. As he does at Chelsea, he worked closely with Esteval, encouraging him and making sure he felt comfortable. Chelsea fans see this relationship as beneficial. A 23-year-old helping an 18-year-old, strengthening the club's long-term core. The key question now is, can Joao Pedro sustain this unbelievable form? Now, statistically, players rarely maintain a goal per game over a season. Pedro's 2 goals from 1.4 expected goals indicates slight overperformance, but it's not a fluke. His shot volume of 2.7 per game could be increased, with elite strikers attempting closer to 4 to 5. If he continues arriving late rather than just standing in the 6-yard box, his XG might remain around 0.5 per game. His assist numbers might regress from 2 and 3, but the underlying expected assists of 1.1 suggests he can comfortably provide 8 to 10 assists over a season if he continues linking with runners. Importantly, his shot creating actions show he doesn't need to score to impact games. With Cole Palmer returning to full fitness very soon, this will test Maresca's lineup choices. With Palmer playing as a 10, Joao Pedro will find himself playing as the 9 again, with Liam Delap currently out. The team's dynamics may shift a little bit, but his adaptability means he could still be effective. Pedro has shown that he can score goals without Cole Palmer, but Chelsea fans are excited to see the possibilities returning back as Pedro and Cole Palmer continue this budding relationship that's forming at the moment. The expectation around him has now skyrocketed. Winning Chelsea's Player of the Month and being nominated for the Premier League Player of the Month after 3 games will naturally bring scrutiny. He needs to handle the media attention, opposition analysis, and potential changes in tactics now by opponents. But the broader significance behind Joao Pedro is the fact that if he succeeds long-term at Chelsea, he will vindicate the club's strategy of recruiting from Brighton. Past acquisitions like Cucurella, Caicedo, Sanchez have all brought positives to the Chelsea team, but with Pedro's early season successes, it feels like it's starting to shift the narrative a little bit from copying Brighton to now fans trusting the scouts at the football club. Joao Pedro is that modern-day striker archetype. Pedro embodies the modern forward, less about sheer goals, more about linking play, pressing, arriving, and creating. And this was the main thing Enzo Maresca said specifically he wants. He doesn't care to have a 20 to 30 goal a season striker. He would rather distribute the goals evenly across the attack, but to make that work, you need a 2-way player, 3-way player, 4-way player like Joao Pedro to bring those tactics to its highest level. And Joao Pedro is the perfect fulcrum for the new look, fluid attack that Maresca wants to have at Chelsea. And in just a few months, Joao Pedro has gone from being labelled another Brighton boy to becoming a key piece in Chelsea's attack. The only games that he hasn't scored in whilst playing for Chelsea was on his sub-appearance debut of the Club World Cup and the 0-0 draw against Crystal Palace. Since signing for us in the summer, he has 7 goals and 2 assists in all games, and right now, his signing has brought back newfound belief and confidence in the fan base. From becoming a player that was much aligned, with much confusion around the use of him, his role, and what he could bring to Chelsea, to now delivering the goods and humbling everyone that originally had any doubts around him. For Chelsea fans, this is a journey and a reminder to always keep an open mind, because sometimes the signings that you least expect to be successful turn out to be the ones that you can't live without. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, drop a like, subscribe for more videos like this, more breakdowns, and tell us your favorite Joao Pedro moment right now. I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lines TV. I'll see you guys again